Hello and welcome to a presentation on Fax over IP by Biscom. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This webinar will cover how virtualization can reduce your cost and provide flexibility and efficiency for your faxing needs.
Hello, my name is Martin Grondin. I'm a Senior Technical Support Engineer here at Biscom, and I have 6 years of experience working with customers to implement their faxing solutions from telephony to user experience.
And my name is Donna Watson. I'm a Senior Account Manager here at Biscom with 19 years of experience providing customers with an enterprise faxing solution. Before we get started, a couple of the usual housekeeping items. Please use the Questions tab to submit any questions you might have throughout the presentation. We love answering your questions and we encourage you to ask them. We will do our best to get each question answered at the conclusion of the presentation, and we'll get back to you to any questions we don't have time for. If you encounter any technical difficulties, please use the chat feature to alert us. This session will be recorded, and the link to the recording will be sent out at the conclusion of the presentation. Now on to today's agenda. Today we're going to talk about fax over IP, the basics, as well as common voice over IP deployments, virtualizing your fax over IP faxing solution, and how it can help with disaster recovery. And then we're also going to talk about a customer success story, and then we'll have some Q&A. I'm going to pass this over to Martin, and he's going to go and discuss the fax over IP implementation.
Thank you, Donna. Fax over IP, or commonly known as VoIP, is sending and receiving faxes over IP networks instead of through analog phone lines that are plugged into hardware-based fax servers, MFPs, or standalone fax machines. VoIP is done on the fly between a software-based fax server using VoIP license and a fax device on the other end. This fax device can be an IP-based or telecom-based. It doesn't matter. The software-based IP fax server uses the same protocol to do faxing as a board-based fax server would. It's just that the protocol is now packetized to flow over an IP network. Configuring the license to enable IP faxing is a snap through Biscom's easy-to-follow GUI-based tool. If you're already using fax over IP network to make your phone calls, you can leverage the network already in place for your faxing needs. As a general rule, if an IP network is already running voice over it, then configuring faxing to go over IP as well can typically be done. The same reasons companies are migrating to voice over IP, saving money, easy portability of phone numbers, and using their existing IP infrastructure to serve their voice needs instead of investing in a completely separate telecom network, are the same for fax over IP. By eliminating the fax board and going with fax over IP, you can have an entirely software-based fax server. A software license runs under the Biscom fax software to handle all the IP call setup and transfer the fax image data. Installations are also much easier. You don't have to open a server or even be on site with the server. You can do the full fax server installation remotely. When you go with fax over IP, you can go software only, not just with the fax server, but in other areas of your telecom environment as well, such as your current switching equipment. This diagram will help illustrate the benefits of fax over IP a little more. In your traditional fax server setup, you have clients communicating with the fax server over an IP network. This is your LAN. They send and receive faxes through web clients, desktop clients, email clients, or other applications. The fax server sits at the edge of your IP network and has phone lines running into it, actually to a fax board that's installed in the fax server. These phone lines can come from an outside phone service provider or from an internal switch at your company, a PBX. In the fax over IP implementation, the clients who interact with the fax server don't change how they do it. A critical consideration when you're thinking of fax over IP. There's no impact on your end users, so they send and receive faxes just like they always have, and there's no retraining involved. Only now, on the other side of the fax server, instead of actual phone lines coming in, there's an IP connection. This would be the same IP connection you're using for that server today. You don't need to dedicate a network adapter just for your fax over IP traffic. The fax traffic flows over the internal IP network out to something like a media gateway, which has phone lines coming into it, and which handles the relay on the fly between fax over IP and fax over the phone lines. Or your fax traffic can flow to a PBX, only this time the PBX can handle IP traffic. If all your voice and fax traffic is IP, then this PBX can be software only instead of a box as in this diagram. If you're going IP all the way, notice that the cloud off to the right is labeled telco or IP. Many businesses today have IP telephony trunks, known as SIP trunks, and as a cost and resource saving measure. Going with IP telephony also offers greater portability and flexibility. If you have SIP trunks coming into your business to handle voice traffic, you can leverage those same IP resources to send your faxing over those same IP trunks, SIP trunks. And you can see that even though you go with all the cutting edge technology on your enterprise, you can still talk to anything out there that talks fax, including the plain old fax standalone machine. If you're using a SIP trunk, the SIP carrier will handle the translation between IP and telco in their network. So fax server virtualization is a software instance of a traditional hardware server. Years ago, for your servers, you had to buy pieces of hardware, install an operating system on it, and run it for whatever you needed. Multiple tasks required multiple hardware servers to be set up, all of which cost money to buy and maintain. When you virtualize your servers, you can run multiple software instances of machines on a physical host machine. With this, you can reduce the hardware footprint considerably and now eliminate the need to constantly purchase and upgrade hardware. Virtualizing your servers allows you to take snapshots of the virtual machines, allowing you to restore service in case of a crash within minutes. You get more high availability options by spreading your fax ports across multiple VMs. There are many technology solutions out there today that allow you to build virtual machines like VMware and Hyper-V. Once you virtualize all or some of your servers, you can take those virtual machines and move them among physical host machines. If you need to move a machine, you can do it without actually needing to be there. This offers tremendous flexibility and is a great time saver. You can also save money by not having to go out and buy so many servers, just physical hosts for the virtual machines. You save a lot on maintenance. Think of the power cost savings in terms of not just having to plug all those hardware servers into electrical outlets, but the power needed to maintain so many physical machines, such as cooling them. Finally, going virtual is considering helping go green. Fewer hardware means fewer physical resources consumed all around. So going virtual saves money, adds flexibility, saves time, and helps out with the environment. You can see why virtualization has caught on so much in the IT world. So what are the objectives of VoIP and virtualization? The first is core businesses are leveraging the existing investment in their voice over IP networks for faxing, either on the premises or in the cloud. Having a VoIP solution allows your faxing to use the same IP network. No separation of voice versus fax communication paths. No separate networks to pay for and maintain. Going to VoIP and virtual servers reduces fax costs. No running phone lines into a fax server. You may use your existing VoIP services and trunks. Using VMs helps you to save on hardware costs. Virtualization is recognized as a green technology, saving on materials and material costs. No dedicated server, no toner or paper, it saves space, you have no analog phone lines, and reduces your power consumption. When you go VoIP and virtualization, you increase productivity by freeing up your IT group to focus on other tasks. They don't need to be concerned with phone lines as it's all IP. And they don't have to be concerned with buying and supporting a hardware server as the machine is virtual. As stated previously, you can even work on these virtual servers remotely. And finally, the Biscom fax solution provides a set of rich features including advanced fax routing, integration not only with various IP switches and gateways, but applications on the end user side, combined with robust tools for tracking, reporting, and monitoring. Let's take a look at one common application. Having your Faxcom VoIP server talk directly to the media gateway. What is a media gateway, you may ask? Simply put, it's a box appliance which handles the translation between IP calls on the internal LAN side and telecom calls on the outside. Telephone lines come from the phone network, plug into these devices, and provide the direct interface out of the telecom network, or PSTN. This diagram shows all the basic IP calls from the Faxcom server using SR140, going through a media gateway, out to PSTN to a legacy fax machine. In this example, we're using the Dialogic Media Gateway, or DMG for short. Biscom provides frontline support on both the SR140 and the Dialogic Media Gateways when you purchase through us. However, if you need to go with another media gateway solution, the Faxcom SR140 solution interoperates with many popular media gateways out there, including Cisco, AudioCodes, Sonos, Avaya Nortel, or Siemens, and many others. The main thing to consider is that the SR140 and Faxcom interrupt with gateways at the protocol level. The make and model of the gateway does not matter. If you're using a hardware-based fax server today, think of what can happen if the server should go down or if the fax board should fail. When your fax server goes down, it goes down hard. Clients can't fax into your company. They get busy signals, or worse, recordings that warn them that the circuits are unavailable or busy. If something on the fax server itself crashed, you need to scramble to locate a suitable replacement hardware server or rush out to repair the existing server, assuming you have the right parts. If the fax board fails, you may need to contact the vendor as soon as possible to get them to rush a new one. And if you don't invest in a protection warranty, you need to buy a new board before they could be rushed to you. You have to scramble first to identify what's happened. Then you have to realize it's a server crash. Someone has to get out there, do whatever they can, and if new parts, a new server, or if a new fax board are needed, you may need to wait until the next business day to contact the vendor, who may not even be in the same time zone as you. All this can add up to a total downtime that measures in days, unacceptable in today's business climate. Your faxing solution can't afford to be down that long. Compare this terrible scenario if you've gone to VoIP on a virtual server. Going virtual allows you to take snapshots of your virtual machines to make them much easier and quicker to restore in case of a crash. Remember, these are virtual machines. They're software instances of servers. There's no hardware to fix or replace or wait for a vendor to send. If your physical host machine is having a problem or needs to be taken down for maintenance, move to another physical host permanently or temporarily. There's no hardware to replace with virtual machines except for the physical host. And having the machines virtual makes it far easier to coordinate downtime on those physical hosts. If your virtual machine should crash, if you prepared properly and have the right virtual machine utilities in place, you could be back up in minutes. And that sounds a lot better than down for days, doesn't it? Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Donna, and she's going to talk a little bit about Turner.
Thanks, Martin. Here's a great success story from Turner Acceptance. They're a consumer finance company based out of Chicago that specializes in direct and indirect loan financing since 1973. Some of their focuses are auto dealerships and retail merchants. They've been in business for over 40 years, and they know what works when running a business and what you need to run it successfully, which is why they chose Biscom as their faxing solution. However, a couple of years ago, it came time to upgrade their fax server solution, and they wanted to implement new technology, and so they decided to virtualize their fax server and replace that fax board and phone lines with Biscom's Faxcom server and the VoIP license that communicates over IP. They did this a few years ago, and they're very happy with the decision to go virtual and IP. Here's a quote from Ruben Friedman, the CFO at Turner Acceptance, saying, Biscom recommended to virtualize our existing faxing solution, and we are very pleased with the solution. The migration from a standalone server to a virtualized host was well supported and was completed with no interruptions.
Okay, on that note, I think we're going to move on to the Q&A. If you don't get a chance to answer here, we'll contact you after the webinar with the answers. And if you think you have any questions later on, please don't hesitate to contact our sales team at sales@biscom.com. Okay, so let's take a look.
Yeah, so Mark, before we get to the questions, I want to just bring up one thing that we talked about the other day is that we have customers that call into us all the time and they say, Donna, what can we do? We want to virtualize our faxing solution, but we don't have a VoIP system in place. And these kinds of questions come up all the time because of virtualization and all the great benefits it has. And so what do you suggest when it comes to that?
If they don't have a VoIP environment already, what they can do oftentimes is order some kind of media gateway that we provide. We work with Dialogic media gateways. We work with Cisco, Avaya, and other ones. And what they'll do is they can get that media gateway, and instead of having the phone lines go to the fax server, they can have the phone lines go to the media gateway.
Great.
And that allows them to virtualize their fax servers at that point.
Great. And that's what they love, is that the virtualization, putting everything on VMware or Hyper-V. It seems like everyone is going that route because of the great options that it has with disaster recovery and being able to spin up another instance of it.
Exactly.
We also get questions about SIP providers, and that comes up quite a bit, is that, what SIP providers that you work with. And many times when we get those conversations, we're like, okay, we talk with you, Martin, and our technical staff here. And so if you do have any questions on different SIP providers that we work with, we suggest giving Biscom a call.
Exactly.
And then we can talk through with you on that SIP provider to see if that's a good fit for the voice over IP system.
Exactly. So many SIP providers have their own requirements, so it's good to talk with us and make sure we hammer out those specific requirements. Let's take a look.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've answered some of the questions that came in about the SIP trunks. So we're going to bypass our questions since we've already answered it. If there are any questions that come up after the presentation, please, again, feel free to contact Biscom at 978-250-1800 or at sales@biscom.com. If you'd like more information about the fax over IP networks and how that works, please give us a call. So thank you again for taking the time today to spend with us on this webinar, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you.